So nice to see you. Good evening. I'm used to being in this chair on Shabbat when we teach the Torah class, which is so wonderful. I'll be teaching it soon, but this is a kind of new experience for me, teaching, as they say in Yiddish, mitvach, like in the middle of the week, right? A weekday kind of opportunity. And this, of course, is going to be a three-part session. Hopefully you'll come back for part two and like part two and come back for part three and maybe invite me to come back even after that, because it's always a pleasure to be here at the shul. Let's start just a little bit setting the tone, okay? We set the tone, so if you know it, sing along. If you don't know, you should fake it, okay? La 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 la. Words are simcha rabba, great joy. Simcha rabba. Aviv higia. Aviv is spring. Higia almost. Some places in the world. And simcha rabba, great joy. Aviv higia pesach. So that's a song from my childhood, and they probably continue to sing that in early childhood centers and in schools all over the world. It's wonderful. So great joy, time of Pesach. And if there's anything we need in the world these days, it's a little bit of simcha, a little bit of joy. There's so much for us to be lamentful about. And I don't want to be coarse or crass in any kind of way or tend to be tone deaf to the realities of the world at large. If we ever could use a time of freedom and liberation, Pesach, it's now to be liberated from all the anxieties that swirl about, all the challenges that we're facing as a Jewish people, as a worldwide community. It really is a time for, hopefully, for some joy, some great joy. But it's very important to understand that amongst the responsibilities for our traditions is that you're supposed to be joyous. V'samachta bechagecha, right? V'samachta bechagecha. We usually talk about that at Sukkot because one of the names of Sukkot is Chag, right? V'samachta bechagecha in the Hajj, right? In the cycle of the holidays. But it's all of the holidays, right? V'samachta bechagecha, and then the line. Anybody remember what comes next? V'hayita ach sameach, and you should be ach sameach. Ach doesn't mean brother here, okay? Ach means here only happy, or ultimately happy, or profoundly happy. V'hayita ach sameach. So the point here, of course, is that the time of the holidays is about simcha. And sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. It's maybe this year harder than other holidays. And by the way, for many of us, right, when you think about Pesach, Sameach, yeah, there are parts of it, right, where we're happy because we see a lot of family often come together, right? And that's nice. Maybe it's not so happy. Some of the people who come, I got an Uncle Bernie. I hope he's not on here right now. But right now, some people come and it's not so joyous, but they're still family. They have to come and they bring all of their regular shtick with them, right? Right. So the uncle always tells a joke about the four wines of Pesach. The four wines of Pesach. When do we eat? When do we eat? When do we eat? When do we eat? Right. That's that. So you have people like that who don't necessarily enhance the seder, but maybe detract a little bit from the seder experience. That's part of the reality. But it's a hard one to value ach sameach, to find something in the joy of being together. And this year, I hope that people will find the joy of being together. Listen, we've lived through, this almost reminds me of the first Pesach, right? The number of people who are on here. This is how we did Pesach, right? On Zooms, and in some cases we could see faces, other cases we couldn't see faces. Sometimes we could see up people's noses. We not things we didn't want to see. We saw only from here up for some people. It was crazy, okay? But we are here, and hopefully we'll follow in the tradition of Simcha. V'hayinu ach sameach. We should all be filled with joy to overflowing at this time of the year. So 3 sessions that we're going to do. We're going to look at some texts together. We're going to look at some ideas together. And most importantly, we're going to schmooze, okay? Because I know what my voice sounds like, and I'd like to hear some of your voices as well. So we're going to start a little bit by taking a look at some really important secrets of the Seder that we need to know as a baseline. And if different people show up next week, I'll probably go over this one more time. Even if the same people show up the next time we do it, I might go over this together. Okay, so I want you to find for yourself in the Haggadah that you have, if you have a Haggadah, it's great. We won't have this for the people on Zoom, I apologize. You got to get some benefits of coming live.
But they could pull a Haggadah.
You could pull any Haggadah that you want, okay? But I want you to turn to this page, it's called V111, I guess it's 8, but I'm looking at page 9, right? Order of the service. Why do I take you there? Because we call the Seder because it what?
Order.
It has an order to it, right? It's not crazy, right? It's not meshuggah. It's not out of control. Of course, one of the things we have to say is that you can get to be at a Seder. Anybody been at a Seder where it felt too orderly? They're slavishly bound to the order of the Seder, okay? So I've been in places like that too, right? Where that we have to follow through and do everything and every word and in the right. So again, I have great respect for the tradition and for the Seder. By the way, this is a Haggadah. It is not the Haggadah. If you look at a Sephardic Haggadah, it is different than this Haggadah, meaning Jews who come from places like in North Africa. Yemenite Haggadah is different, right? People come, the Ethiopian Haggadah is different, right? Different Haggadot have different pieces, and even the Haggadot between the movements are different from one another. Even if you were in the conservative movement for a long time, you had a different Haggadah growing up than the Haggadah you have now, and nobody has talked about it except we talked about it before. The only Haggadah I have is the yellow and red Haggadah that I had in, right, that was the one you went to Hebrew school, Talmud Torah, wherever it is that you went, that was the Haggadah that you had, okay? By the way, you know how many of those Haggadot people deliver to synagogues and drop them off at shuls? You don't know what to do with them. We hopefully distribute them to other people can use them, or we bury them because what else are you going to do with the Haggadah? But one way or another, it becomes the Haggadah. So there is a Haggadah which has been put together with its sections to it, right? Which should be the same in every Haggadah. In other words, the agenda should be the same, but the nuances of what each section has within it may be different from place to place, okay? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I want to start with the first part. How many sections are there of the Haggadah? And we should take a look at it, and everybody knows how to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, okay, right? So we're gonna sing the order of the Seder, the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But you don't know anything a little better than Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? Why am I doing this? Right, everybody knows Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? Doesn't matter where you are in the world, everybody knows Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? They can sing it and they know it well. And so it's an opportunity to start the Seder when you talk about laying out the order for everybody to feel at least what? Either giggle a little that you're singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? At the Feast of Liberation from the servitude of over 400 years midrashically, 200 and some odd years. If you actually look at what the Torah has to say, it's an interesting question unto itself. But one way or another, people can join. And one of the big things about a Seder is that people don't feel left out. You want people to feel included, right? That's how I invite Uncle Bernie, because otherwise he might feel left out. So he comes, right? And we invite. And in fact, we go so far as to invite people who are mythic, right? How far do you go to invite? Elijah the prophet you invite, right? And by the way, you know he goes to everybody's house, right? Doesn't he? He stops, because my wine cup that I filled for Elijah always has a little sip removed. At least that's what my kids say. When my Zeta was around, he used to hit the table. Look, there was a little bit of wine that, that he drank Elijah the prophet. So this helps engage people in a way that's really important. So the first thing I just want to say about a Seder, the P's and Q's. What's P's and Q's, by the way? Everybody knows what it means? Why did I call this session P's and Q's? Mind your P's and Q's. What does that mean? Yeah, it's sort of like dotting your I's and crossing your T's. It's more about behaving appropriately.
But isn't it from the Torah, the decorations of the Torah, the etymology?
P's and Q's?
No.
No. Maybe, but maybe you might be a Kabbalist. You may have discovered something I didn't know. But the whole notion of P's and Q's is really sort of a pun for me, because I'm going to talk about P's and I'm going to talk about Q's, right, during the course of these sessions. But the concept of minding your P's and Q's meant you're acting appropriately. This would give you a way in which to engage appropriately, whatever that means, in the experience of Pesach, in the experience of the Seder. And I want to give you some tools to use at your Seder that allow you to act appropriately and maybe even intellectually, integrously, or intelligently, because there's a lot of people who even after one glass of wine, even before they start drinking, right, are acting a little bit out of all sorts. Okay, so we're trying to engage people in a constructive conversation. So let's sing the order of the Haggadah to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, okay? Kadesh Orchat Sarpas Ya Magi Rochsan Vosi Max Korek Shulchan La 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 la. Okay, that was a pediatric version of an experience here, right? But most powerful experiences that we have are available to people at all different levels. You know how you know that from the Haggadah? We have a Chacham, we have a Rasha, we have a Tam, we have a Sheino Yodel Isho, right? We have wise people and simple people and not so good people, and people are so out of it, they don't even know the question to ask, whatever that means, right? And we can explain those in all kinds of ways, but understand, this is supposed to be experienced for everybody. Everybody's got a place, right? This is like Cheers, right? That's why we do a lot of drinking. Everybody knows your name, right? There's a place for everybody at the Seder. There's a place to insert yourself. Now, let's go a little deeper, okay? So we're taking a look at the Haggadah. Everything in the Haggadah has a reason. So take a look at your Haggadah and tell me, why there are this many sections of the Seder? How many sections are there?
15.
Oh, well, let's see how many people can count. You ran out of fingers and toes. Okay, come on.
15.
Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rochza, Motzi, Matzah, Maror, Korech, Shulchan, Orech, Tzafut, Barech, Hallel, Nirza. How many is that?
15.
15.
It says 15 right here. 15.
Okay, and so we have a very good debate we start the Seder with. Is the Haggadah 14 sections or is it 15 sections? Why might it be 14? Because you hyphenate a section called Motzi Matzah. Motzi meaning bread, but it's not bread, it's matzah. So somebody's saying something, I'd love to hear it, I couldn't hear it. Oh, so maybe somebody was just sneezing. So,
One is, flipping over bread, which you do all the time.
right?
The second one is a mitzvah of.
Okay, so I know why it's there,
Different
Motzi Matzah, you're 100% right. But the question is, what does it do to what I just suggested? Like, why would they put it this way? Why would they say there are 15 sections and some will say there are 14 sections? So here you have your first tidbit to write down at your Seder. When you ask the people that you're sitting around your table, we just sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, any other song that you want for the order of the Seder, you say, how many sections are there? And my Uncle Bernie's gonna say 14. And then my aunt, who is his sister, they haven't talked for 45 years, but have argued for 45 Seders, right? She's gonna say, you're wrong, Bernie, there's only 14 sections. And so they'll go back and forth, right? And that's sort of the tradition of the family. But let's dig even deeper. Why? Why? Everybody knows that every Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent, right? Aleph is
1,
right? Yud is
10.
10. Okay, good. So tell me, what is 14 in Hebrew letters? Yud is 10 and Dalet is 4. What does that spell?
Yeah.
Yad. What's a yad? Well, yad is a pointer, but what is a yad in general?
Hand.
Hand, okay? Now hold on for a second. What does a hand have to do with Pesach?
Outstretched arm.
That's right. It is with a mighty outstretched arm that the Lord delivered our people from Egypt. Right? And if you missed that at the beginning of the Haggadah, you missed one of the ways in which the Haggadah tries to reach out and say to you, hey, I'm Yankel, right? Sarah Rivka, whatever your name is, right? This is for you, right? And guess what? You're going to see that what? God's hand was in history. But that's only 14. So, I mean, it's just a yad. So how can we have the 15? What is 15?
Yud Hey.
Yeah, what's Yud Hey?
God.
Yes, Yud Hey is Yah, like at the end of Hallelujah, which is another name for God. So if you take the hand and God, what do you say? There is God's outstretched mighty hand that does what? Interjects, inserts God's self into human history in a way in which we don't normally see. There is no greater story than the story of God's power and might manifest through the Passover experience. And if you start the Haggadah or the whole Seder experience with saying what? What's the point of all of this? That you should see that God is God and God is powerful. And in fact, one of the reasons that we have the whole tale of what happens with the Egyptians and all of the Exodus story was to what? What was the point? What was God trying to do? Show off? No, what was God trying to do? God was trying to indicate to the children of Israel that what? The entire Passover story is what? It's a tussle between Egypt and Israel. Egypt's gods and the God and God of Israel. Not the gods of Israel. That wouldn't be too good, right? The God of Israel. It is the power struggle between monotheism and something other than monotheism. It is between what Israelite religion represents, our tradition, and what Egyptian religion represents, which is a multiplicity of gods. Right? The God of the river, the God of the Nile, the God of this, the God of that, the God of death, the God of life, all of that. And that is the power struggle that we see being laid out. And so when you start the Haggadah by saying it is with Yah's outstretched Yad, right? Yud Hey 15 and 14, you're already telling the whole story. What's about to happen here is a miracle that is beyond anything that we've ever experienced. And what's even more amazing about it is that God erupts in human history. God erupts in human history. After a long period of hibernation, you could call the time in Egypt a time of God's hibernation or the eclipsing of God. Sound familiar? Like anybody ever heard about, Buber and the eclipse of God and all the theologians who talk about the God that is hidden, right? The God that we don't see, the God that makes God's self available to us only in particular quiet moments. Remember the still small voice of the prophet Elijah. Where is God? Lo barash Adonai, right? God isn't found in the clamoring in the mountains. God is found in the still small voice. And in order to hear a still small voice, what do you have to do?
Quiet.
Shut up. Be quiet. You got to listen, right? One of my teachers when I was a little boy in yeshiva used to say, I'm going to tell you, Yidel, I'm going to tell you, little boy, there's a reason the Lord gave you 2 ears and only 1 mouth, right? You should listen twice as much as you talk. And he didn't only say it to me, okay? Probably true for me too, but it was a really wise thing. And part of Passover is not only, right, all the words that we're trying to say as quickly as we possibly can so we can get to the food, it's also to do what? If you're quiet for a moment, if you make some space, if you use all of the symbols and the experience, what can you feel? The erupting of divinity of Yah, right? Through the Yad of Yah in human history. It suddenly changes the entire scene, the entire mood. And you can't do this with little guys because you could do, and they'll smile and they'll laugh. And some folks who are more immature internally may need that. And they'll laugh and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the point here, right? The point is to open yourself up to the possibility of experiencing, if you work at it and you're sensitive to it, the eruption of God's voice in your own life and in the life of humanity. Okay, you buy that?
Mhm.
Not bad. Yeah, please.
So I don't want to, you're eliciting questions in my mind, which, and I don't want to divert from what you're thinking.
No problem, no
but
problem.
The two things then, that concept from Purim and Hester, which they say also means,
There, right, hit it.
and then that we're in some ways almost purposely juxtaposing these things, because then we're symbolically representing that eruption. Number two.
Well, hold on, just to say something. If you think about it, it's sort of the Purim, Pesach, Shavuot vortex. That's what I call it. When I was a congregational rabbi, it was a vortex. just sucks you in, right? But they're all interrelated, and you're right. Purim is one kind of energy, Pesach's a different kind of energy, Shavuos is a different kind of energy, and throw Tisha B'Av at the end of this cycle into even a different kind of energy. We miss those things because we don't live our lives, generally speaking, by the cycles of Jewish holidays. If we did, we'd be more sensitive to the ebbs and the flows, the moments where God is purposefully hidden, right? And the moments when God is purposely seen. So I think it's a beautiful comment, yeah.
Well, yeah, and then when you say that concept that they say about the calendar, that half the year you're having to work on things.
Nice.
And then this is the part of the half the year where there's miracles. But the second part, for me, my initial thing about the 15, and I must be confusing it with the Dayenu, was
Also
the
15.
aspect of 15 steps up, I don't know what part of the temple.
The-
But maybe that's wrong to think about
Oh,
that,
no,
right?
no.
So they had repetition of 15 for that aspect.
You're gonna see 15s all over here, places that you don't even know. And you're 100% right about the steps. There were 15 steps that led up where the south wall excavation is today. And what the reason, and you know how the steps were done? They were done big step, little step, big step, little step. Why? Who used to stand on those steps?
The Levites.
Shir Hamalot B'Shuv. What's Shir Hamalot mean? The song of the steps. Ma'alot, yeah, but they're the arising steps. So Shir Hamal, they would stand on those steps, and the Levi'im would stand on the fat steps, right? And sing. And then the next step will be a smaller step, so that people wouldn't stand on that step, right? Or like people could stand somewhere. So it did, and now the other part of it is, how do you go up? Big step, little step, big step, little step. It ain't Rocky Balboa. Dun, da, 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 da. You can't. Why? You have to catch your footing. So you're going into the holiest side of the Jewish people, and you're gonna go in and you're gonna hear the Levites playing do, 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 right? And lyres and all, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're hearing all of this, but you have to go in reverentially. You have to watch your steps. You have to count your steps. I mean, it's the way in which sometimes people, have you ever seen somebody come into shul, into the sanctuary, and before they walk into the sanctuary, they just sort of stand there and they take it all in? Most people just bound into synagogue.
Or they're trying to find their
Or
stuff.
they're trying to.
And they have David and
And then
I.
a beautiful greeter comes over and welcomes them and gives a talis.
Is so-and-so here yet?
You
Like-
walk into shul, when my father walks into shul, it's our custom, walk into shul, the first thing you do is bow to the Aron HaKodesh. Bow to them. Understand you're entering into holy space. And you don't just bound in, you're entering into a space that's a little different, right? And it's something we don't really teach because, look, I'll say something now, it's not a political statement, it's a statement of the reality of Judaism today. We so much want our kids to be in synagogue that we've tried really hard to put honey on everything, right? Honey on the pages of the Torah, and it's good to do that, don't get me wrong, you have to put honey. But how about a little reverence? Because what lasts? You know, it's like a fruit chew. You eat it for a second and it'll disappear, right? Starburst. Don't ever eat Starburst. Like nothing, right? No calories, right? A lot of calories probably, right? A lot of sugar, but it doesn't last, right? It doesn't sate you. What sates people is not bursting chewy things. What sates you is death. You're far more sated right now about the Song of Ascents, about Shir Hamalot, and you know that the Levites used to stand there with their musical instruments and greet you as you walked into the holiest spot of the Jewish people amongst singing, right? And music and all of the pomp and circumstance that was there. And you couldn't just run up the stairs if you were late for Shacharit, right? You had to do so in a reverential kind of way. And I think that's one of the pieces that we don't catch within things like the Seder. Everything is mesudar, it's arranged for a reason, and it's there to say to you, darsheni, learn me, explicate me, understand me, and en la davar sof. There is no end to the making of meaning in and around the story of liberation. You know why? Because no matter how free you are, you're still bound. There are things that bind you. It could simply be that you're still living on last year's freedom. That's what's binding you. Because you're free in 5783, you're not in 5784, you're not free. Freedom is something that needs to be renewed on a regular basis because what it means to be bound is different in every era. look, come on, we're all a little on the older side, except for Rich. Rich hasn't aged a day, he's still 25 years old, okay? But
Right.
the truth, hey, I'm talking to you, no sluffing. Yeah, hi, Rich, how are you? So the, Boker Tov. But here's the issue, right? Like, how many of us get slavishly bound to the way in which we always thought about it? Or the way we always reacted to it? Right? Have you ever been in a setting where somebody, those who do shitakwa, probably there's a little bit of that kind of consciousness in shitakwa, right? Let's look at the same tree you've come to see at Chautauqua every year and see it in a different way. And actually, the truth of the matter is, it works. Let me make it deeper, okay? I take it away from my tree. Who's been married a long time in this space? You're supposed to say it only feels like it's. Okay. What's a long
It's a
time?
long
Okay,
time.
good. But in the question, in the answer to the question, you will also answer how you feel, right? But you know, it's interesting. When we have the story of the working, right, that Moses has to work for his wife or be away from his wife, or when our patriarchs have to work for their wives, right? Jacob, for example. Right, what does it say? It says, "V'ayu be'enav ki yamim achadim." It felt like nothing. It felt like nothing, right? As much as you, why? Because you're willing to work for it. For the things that you're willing to work for, it's okay. It could feel like it's schlepping on, but it's worth every moment. And what we do with the Seder very often is when are we going to get to the end? When are we going to get to the food? Right? We rush it so much that we don't allow the savoring of the moment. Now, here's the problem, okay? This is not only a problem with the Seder, this is a problem with everything. And by the way, since I'm a conservative rabbi and we're sitting in a conservative synagogue, I'll pick on conservative Judaism today, but I'm an equal opportunity offender when it comes to denominations. I can pick on all of them equally. But here's the story. You ever look at the conservative prayer book? The conservative prayer book has a wonderful Hebrew to it, right? And some things have changed. Most of the stuff in the conservative prayer book is the exact same as has always been in the prayer book, in the Orthodox prayer book as well. Where does it deviate? In the English.
Yeah.
The English translation becomes very much more PC, right? It becomes more egalitarian, it becomes more sensitive, maybe gender neutral God language, right? God isn't he, God is God, right? There are all kinds of things that we do, right? That's our shtick as conservative Jews. That's what we do. It's our shtick. But what does the reform movement do, right? They translate it into whatever idiom makes sense to them at that moment in time. It's much, or what does Reconstructionism do? By the very nature of the name, right? Reconstructionism. What is humanistic Judaism? They don't say Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam motzi lechem min haaretz. They say what? Baruch b'nei Adam. Blessed are humans who bring forth bread from the earth. Right. By the way, when my kids first saw, they said, "Abba, those humanists got it right. Last time I checked, God didn't make the loaf of bread. You know, Bernie Gunn from Gunn's Bakery made the bread." Right. That was a bakery I grew up with in Canada, in Winnipeg. Right? Like it made sense to them as kids that Mr. Gunn made the bread, not God. Now, it took a little bit of an abstraction, and you know, kids get to that stage when they're developing and they ultimately begin to appreciate what it's all about. But when you first translate, "Praised are you Adonai, who brings forth bread from the earth," like I've never seen a bread tree. I haven't seen a bread bush, right? Kids take things really literally. And so when we go into translation, it's very consequential and significant. The reason I'm saying all of this is part of the Seder experience has to be the ability to move away from slavishly looking at texts or the text in front of us and saying, "I know this one already." Right? You know what we do sometimes at the Seder? Sometimes at the Seder, we'll do this order backwards. No, we won't do the order backwards. We'll say the order backwards. It's not so easy to do, right? Nirtza Hallel, right? You have to work at it, right? Sometimes you have to see something.
That's the Shammai translation.
That's a job. But you know what? Hillel and Shammai, it's so interesting you say that. It's a great observation. You know, we always say, okay, Hillel and Shammai. By the way, there's only 4 arguments maybe 5 between Hillel and Shammai. Did you know that directly? Hillel and Shammai only argued about 4 or 5 things. You know how many things Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai argued about? Everything. They argued about everything, which tells you what? Great scholars don't pick fights for no reason. They figure out how to have shalom, right? You fight about the things that are really key, right? It's like I did 60th wedding anniversary for a couple. Okay, they came in, they were short to begin with. They've gotten shorter over the course of time. They walk in, they sit down. We're going to have a 60th wedding blessing. I like to get to know the couple and tell me a little bit about you. And I said, okay, this is wonderful. I got all the information. We're going to do a nice blessing on the bima. Just tell me, what's the secret to marriage? Right, a successful marriage. So she looks at him and he looks at her and she goes, you can say it. And he said, well, in our marriage, there are only little things and big things. Anything I wanted was a big thing. Anything he wanted was a little thing, right? Like the big things, so we want the big things or the little things, right? That's the way you have to work out a system for how it's going to work. The same thing is true here. Like, you're going to have to figure out a system that works for you with your Seder. You cannot spend as much time as I spent on this one page and still have anybody with you at the Seder, especially the people who aren't used to it. Now, if you Seder with people that you really like and you can Seder with who want the same experience, right? It's great. Oh, I have to tell the story. Columbus, Ohio, my first pulpit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
really?
Ohio. Oh, yeah, go Bucks. I knew her from there.
Oh,
You're at the same synagogue.
At the same synagogue. She was a kid. I was already an old guy.
which one?
The Fair of Israel. So we're at the Fair of Israel, and I won't say the name because you know the people. And they said, Carnie, we would really like to have a Seder with you. It's wonderful. Let's prepare. So we met for 6 weeks, every Sunday night for several hours, and we put together our own Haggadah, and we prepared, and everybody was ready with what they were going to do. We showed up at their house, and they're lovely. They live in a beautiful home in Bexley, gorgeous house. And we show up, and we walk in, and they're passing hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
So I look at Polly, and Polly looks at me, and she goes, I don't think the plan that we had is really going to work, okay? So we sit down at the Seder after about an hour of hors d'oeuvres, and people are drinking and hors d'oeuvres, and and we sit down, and they said, and now Rabbi Rose is going to lead us in the Seder. So we start to go down into the Seder, and we take out the material, and we've got on 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, and I start to notice people are leaving, right? Putting on their coats, they're leaving. It's at the end, it's me and Polly and the hosts, because they would have left too when it was their house, okay? And we got through, I don't know, 4 parts of the Haggadah in an hour, right? And by the way, we didn't get invited back the next year, but all the preparation that we had done to share materials and photocopy things, and everybody was going to share something, and we barely got through anything. So you have to understand something about the people who are sitting at your table and what they can deal with. And by the way, it's also okay to say, we have a certain kind of Seder. This is what we do here. If you'd like to be with us, we'd love to have you. We'll try to make space for you, but understand we really want it to be, fill in the blank, whatever we want it to be. And setting the standard of, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, my machachonim. Can we skip that part? Can we skip that part?
Yeah.
I told her she's not invited.
Yeah. So the truth of the matter, it's hard for people. You know why? Forgive them, Father, they do not know. Okay? A different tradition.
Yeah.
Okay? But it makes sense here. They really don't really appreciate what's happening here. Do you want a depth model? If you want a depth model, then you have to Seder with people who are like you, which will take me to 1P that I want to talk about, okay? The first, you want to go, you go first.
I was gonna say, also too, I think there is something to be said too, is like if people at your Seder want to grapple with specific parts of it, then maybe you can also shorten other parts where to.
Very practical. That's another P. It's a great comment. Because look, you can decide with the group of people in advance. We're not going to do all, I don't know, the Magid. We're not going to do every part of Magid. But this year, we'd really like to focus on something. And let's decide that together. Or the person leading the Seder can what? Say in advance, friends, I love you all. But as the host of this event or the leader of this event, I'm going to choose some things. And if I missed out, you have a second night Seder at your house. Do whatever you want. Okay, but at this Seder, this is what we're going to do. I think it's a really important piece. And if you come to a consensus, then everybody agrees. Or if you can't get a consensus, at least you can force it on the group of people. Because most people won't challenge you if you say, we're not going to do every single page, but we're going to do some things that are really important. So 1P is what? 1P is be practical. Okay, be practical, right? Understand who the audience is in front of you. That's a really, really important part. Okay, yes, a comment from up there. Somebody has a raised hand.
I was just about to say for the hors d'oeuvre crowd, you can explicitly explain how many things can be eaten after the Hadamah blessing. So start it, get to the Hadamah, and then do the hors d'oeuvres then. I mean, I
Right.
understand you weren't the host, but that could be a way to reframe it.
That's a really nice idea. And to say we're going to have something substantive at the beginning of the Seder or relatively close to the beginning of the Seder so that people are sated and aren't starving. Because a lot of people come for dinner and they're waiting for, it always drives me crazy when people say the Passover dinner. Everybody, it's the Passover dinner. It's not the Passover dinner. I mean, not in, this is Cleveland, this is a highbrow thing. But lots of people in lots of other places say, in Missouri, they say the Passover dinner, right? Here, they're educated people. So one P that we want to talk about is the P of trying to find ways in which to par it down. I'm going to start getting punny here, okay? I'm going to par it down a little bit so that people can participate in P, right? Participate in a way that is meaningful to them. Okay. Any other comments before I want to go directly to this piece that I want to go through?
Two things.
Okay, two things. If somebody could read it, it would be really good.
How we already went.
Oh. Shmona Esrei has 19 verses prayers, but we don't call it that. We call it Shmona Esrei. That's right. That's right. There's 19 blessings, but we call it Shmona Esrei. It has 19 blessings, but we call it the 18 blessings. There was one added later for a particular reason. You're 100% right. Okay, but I want to go now to the text that I had. So take out your text for a moment. And I want to go over some of the P's and Q's, but I want to go over first the P's, okay? This is the P's of Pesach, okay? So here's the first P that I want to share with you. And by the way, I steal these. You know why? Everybody knows the old saying in Hebrew, Hagonev mehaganav patur. Anybody know what that means? Hagonev, somebody who steals from a ganef, from a thief, is not culpable. Okay, why? The Talmud says that. Because we all steal from each other, sometimes unconsciously and some unconsciously. So these aren't only my ideas, these are ideas of others. And it's not an exhaustive list because we already came up with one additional P, but let's go through some P's and see what they can teach us. Okay, first thing, patience. In Hebrew, it's called savlanut. You ever hear that? Savlanut, right? Which Israelis use the word very often, but have none. Okay, right? Savlanut, which also means tolerance. The same root gives rise to the word suffer. Sevel, lisbol in Hebrew means to suffer. Why is that important in our story?
That we were suffering.
Yeah. Bayar Adonai et amalenu lachatzenu, right? God saw the stresses that were upon us, right? We were really suffering. So having patience at the Seder reminds us also of what? Lisbol, that our ancestors had to suffer a little bit too, and they had to overcome. And if you're unhappy with how long the rabbi, the leader, the Zeta is going on with the service, guess what? It was 400 years of servitude. They made it through. You'll make it through the Seder. Okay? But there's another side to the patience of all of this, which is what? There is the notion of patience for what? For what at a Seder? What about the person who's really unhappy at a Seder? By the way, when people are usually unhappy at a Seder, it's because, again, I'm not bringing, this is not a clinical situation, okay? There are a lot of unhappy people. And Jewish holidays bring out a lot of unhappiness. Why? Maybe they haven't done it for a long time, they feel guilty. Maybe they know their parents and grandparents are disappointed with the way in which they're doing the holiday. Maybe they themselves have fallen away from the tradition and don't know how to come back, crawl back, those are hard things. We don't make it so easy for people. And by the way, the Seder doesn't make it so much easier either, because the archetypes that we lay out are reimagining them are what? Archetypes of the good guy is the smart guy, right? The bad guy is the bad guy, right? The simple guy is the simple guy, or young, right? By the way, how many people today would say a lot less about life than they would have said at a much earlier stage in their life? I'm one. I thought I had it all figured out. I really did. Right. I was already 18. I should have had it all figured out. Right. I was a rabbi long before, and I was telling people how they should deal. I was married for 4 minutes, and I was telling people how they should live their married life, right? I was counseling people who had been through cancer and death, and happiness and loneliness and divorce, and I was telling people, right? What did I know about anything? Right? And they thrust me into being the guy of being the chacham. The smartest thing I ever said is, the smartest thing I ever did was have older rabbis around me. Right? The best time in my entire career so far was when it was nice to be the boss. I was the senior rabbi, but there was a rabbi who had been the rabbi emeritus who was there 58 years, who was the senior citizen, right? Who was the man. And then my dad was on the staff. So to have your own father, and we used to call the shul the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Right? Rabbi Lipnick was the Holy Spirit because he brought the Spirit. He had been in the congregation. He knew things we would never know. He had lived through things that we never would understand. And he brought to the table so much of this patience, so much of this information. Patience is really important. And the question is, are you going to see what's going on at the Seder as sevel, as suffering, or are you going to see it as an exercise in patiently hearing other people and understanding their experience? P.S. You want to try something really cool? Oh, I'm giving away some good stuff tonight. Do this at your Seder. What kind of maror do you have at your Seder? What do you do for maror? Fresh horseradish, white, red? White. Okay, what else? Does anybody use romaine lettuce?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Horseradish, right? Anybody use anything else? Anybody use wasabi? Want to do something amazing? Put out 5 different kinds of something that's bitter, okay? And say to people, in a moment, we're going to make the bracha, and we're going to do the maror, which is the obligatory responsibility, right? One of the things you have to talk about is the maror. And then stop for a moment, let people digest, take a water, whatever it is, and say, I want everybody to take a different maror that you didn't start with. Then take another drink of water. I want you to go to a third. I want you to go to a fourth. I'm not saying a lot, take a little bit, okay? Now I want you to describe what bitterness did you taste in that kind of maror? What did you taste? What does it tell you about who you are? And how does it inform this experience that you're going through right now? I've got to tell you, it can be one of the most powerful experiences. And there are people, I was at a Seder last year with a person who was a Holocaust survivor, and she talked about the experience in the Holocaust. And she said, this maror was nothing. But this maror, that reminded me of being in the camps. And there's something about taste that's very powerful, just like smell. I mean, smell is much more powerful, right? It's the real things that you remember to smell, right? Did anybody lose a grandparent like I did at a young age? You know, when I knew my Zeta, who was very close to I was really gone, when I couldn't smell him. I used to, after he passed, I would go and find his sweaters. Or my parents, when they went away, they gave us their pillows. Because you could smell your parents, right? Like there's sights and smells and sounds. And we don't do a lot of this at the Seder. We don't give people a chance to talk about how does this make me feel. We can talk about after 4 glasses of wine, this is how I feel. Okay? Or after eating, more food than I should ever eat at any meal, this is how it makes me. But what about the psycho-spiritual reality that's induced, right? And imbibed for a reason. We imbibe, that's the experience here. P.S. Do you notice that the Seder happens on many levels simultaneously? It's what? Sight, smell, taste, right? All these things are happening, and the kinesthetic as well, right? The kinesthetic as well. Particularly if you come from Sephardic places where they hit each other with the scallions when they're singing Dayenu, or you get up during your Seder and cross the Sea of Reeds, right? Or you dance during the Hallel. You move the body. It's all engaged. Okay, patience. So you have to have some patience, okay? Let's go to the next one, perspective. Another P of Pesach. Well, so take a look. What does it say? The Jewish view on perspective is to live by Jewish values. These are the main values. What are the values of Jewish life? Are these good? The value of life, right? The sanctity of life, World peace, the idea of humanity living in peace and harmony, right? It's a Jewish invention here, right? Peace is a central concept of the Bible, and we see it beautifully described by the prophets, right? The word shalom appears in the Bible 240 times. 240 times. That's an awful lot of times for a word to appear because it's a leitmotif, right? It's a leitwort. It is a word that leads our people. Look, stop for a moment. Just ask everybody around the table. Everybody who wants to say something. Let's stop for a second so I can see more faces if I can. Give me the leading word, a leitwort for you as a person. It's just, come on, give me one. Give me one. Sorry, I'll just do it.
I'll stop it.
Yeah. Will that stop it? Yeah. Come on, give me something that works for you.
Spirit.
Spirit.
Honesty.
Honesty? Good. It's such a long.
Harmony.
Harmony. Yeah, good one. Okay.
Focus.
Focus. Focus. By the way, focus can be a very individual thing, but focus can be, is our family. There's our friendship. There's our congregation. There's our community. Do the people we care about most have a focus of what we want to achieve and do? And what else? Come on.
Presence.
Presence. Presence. That's a great P word too. Yes, we should add it to the list here. You know what's really a problem at the Seder? People they doze off, or they're talking in the corner, or they run away, or they hide out, or they spend, I don't know, they go outside for a smoke or whatever. People do that. Right, but people do what they do, and by the way, it's an avoidance tactic. Generally speaking, it's an avoidance tactic. Why? Because either it's too uncomfortable for them to be really honest, or this ritual has somehow become passé to them, or it conjures up all kinds of uncomfortable feelings of their own inadequacy and how their parents thought of them or their grandparents would think of them. I mean, I say it only because I've lived it and I've worked with people, and the Seder can be one of the most, I think, disturbing and disquieting experiences. It also can bring a tremendous amount of equanimity. It can bring peace. It's another P of Pesach. But it also can be, and by the way, generally speaking, you don't arrive at peace immediately. You arrive at peace eventually. You make your peace with situations. You work towards peace, right? Oseh shalom bimrama. What's that mean? Oseh shalom. The one who makes peace above, right? What comes next? Oseh shalom bimrama. Next. Ya'aseh shalom alein. That God should bring peace onto aleinu, onto us. Ve'al kol Yisrael, to all the people of Israel, which by the way is a great miracle because there's never peace amongst you, but I don't say it so, right? Oseh shalom bimrama. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. All of Israel, and in our new Sidur, we had Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, to all the people who inhabit the earth. What's the greatest miracle? That would come true. Oseh Shalom B'Merav, it's very easy. You know what's easy? God can make peace. You know why? Up there? Who lives up there? Who lives up there? Angels. I mean, even though we have lots of stories of angels having arguments, right? It's a heck of a lot easier to make peace amongst angels than 22 kids in the 7th grade in Hebrew school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Come on, okay? Right, that God should make shalom aleinu. Okay, all right, we're a cover, we're a community, we're people who care about many of the same things. We're in the same shul, we care about each other. We have basic core values that we share. That's okay, right? Ve'al kol Yisrael, all of Israel, right? And then Ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, it is the most aspirational line of the entire Jewish corpus, right? That's an amazing idea. So to talk about bringing peace is really, really challenging. And by the way, sometimes it works exactly the opposite. Sometimes you have a really easy way of making peace with people who are far away, right? You ever notice what it's called when people are close to one another? It's called friendly fire. That's what it's called, friendly fire. We trespass with the people that we love, and it comes from a good place because you shouldn't have to put on airs. But I've got to tell you something. I'm going on 29 years of marriage. Okay, I did not know a lot about how to be married, other than I saw how my parents did. They seemed to do it with ease, right? They did. That's because they were really good actors. They argued a lot behind closed doors. There was no divisions amongst them in front of the 5 children.
Yeah.
Right? And we learned something about how come it was so, and my wife comes from 6, okay? And she says the same story. Because they gave off the veneer that we were together. Because they argued like cats and dogs in the other room and decided this was gonna be the front that we're gonna present. But it's not so simple to make peace with anybody. So it's a great miracle that God made peace. So let's go back here, right? We're on the whole issue of what here? On the issue of perspective, right? Perspective, equal justice, right? Tzedek tirdov, right? By the way, justice, you shall. What does pursue mean?
Chase after it.
You have to really chase after it, right? It's not simple. You really got to go after it. And it's tzedek tirdov, twice. Justice. What does that mean to you? I mean, there's lots of explanations. What would you go with? Can you pursue justice in anything but a just way? And then if you do, is it justice? Think about that for a moment, right? Is that just? Is that the justice you want? I can pursue justice. I go grab some guy off the street who I know is a shulmazel, right? And I can be a vigilante. And is that tzedek here though? Is that justice justly pursued? Or is that taking the law into my own hands and being, judge, jury, executioner, which many of us do, not maybe, literally. But how often have we condemned people before we understand their real challenges, right? And by the way, in an era where we're much more sensitive finally to mental health, how about people who are really struggling and sometimes act in ways, or people who say things because they're struggling and they don't mean to say things, right? It was really interesting. At camp, we had a young man who had Tourette's, and the manifestation of his Tourette's was he said things out loud, very inappropriate things, right? It was such a challenge. But the young people in camp really showed the best versions of themselves. And he had such great love. And when he got married, which wasn't so long ago, right, it was filled with Ramah kids who came, right, and supported him. It made me cry. It really did, right? Because you would have imagined that this kid would have been persona non grata. He would have been shunned by the community for the things that he said. And he said all kinds of words which he couldn't control, right? So when you're judging people, you got to judge them for tzedek. You got to understand what's really going on. And we don't usually understand what's beneath the iceberg, right? We just don't know. There's more, what is there? There's more beneath the surface than you see. Okay, let's go back to showing the text, if you don't mind, right? Another thing is family values, right? That's part of perspective and social responsibility. If you don't see all those things in the Seder, I would say, as we have some great rabbis in the Pesach Seder say, if you don't mention the following things at the Pesach Seder, you have not fulfilled your obligation. If you don't talk about social responsibility as part of your Pesach experience in this day and age, right, you really missed out on something. You really missed out on something. Kenny, is it okay for us to put up the text again? Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, let's go to another P. Another P. A P of what? Persistence. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is persistence? What does it mean here? So first of all, you can look at the text. Say it again.
Not giving up.
Yeah, okay. Not giving up, not giving in, not acquiescing to whatever it is that would be easy to acquiesce to. P.S. Let's just say this really honestly. Sometimes acquiescing or giving up and not showing persistence is simply listening to the loudest voice in the space, or the gruffest voice in the space, or the angriest voice in the space, or the person who seems to have the most gravitas in the space. But there's also something really important about making space for voices that otherwise would not be heard. We all know this as educators, right? One of the greatest lessons in education that I ever got was I was taking a course in education as part of my rabbinical training, and the teacher said the following at the beginning: you're going to teach a lesson, and the one thing I ask you to do is not take the questions of the first people to raise their hands. Okay? And suddenly it was really hard because the people who raised their hands were like, remember Horseshack?
Mhm.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. I don't know if anybody, you don't even know what I'm talking about, right? You're too young. Okay.
We do.
Yeah, some of you do,
We-
right? But the point is that you've got people who jump up and they're jumping out of their seat to give you the answer. And the quickest answer is not always the deepest answer. It may be an answer, and I don't want to say that they're not. There's very smart people who know the answers really quickly. But sometimes you give people a moment to excogitate upon an idea, the most beautiful things.
Yeah, that's why you have the 4 children.
Yeah, different models of how people learn and don't learn. And by the way, it's so good that you call them the 4 children. Because for so long, we've talked about 4 sons. I'm one of 4 boys. Then my parents luckily, thank God, had a girl. Okay, and I'm number 2. Guess what that makes me?
Wicked.
Oh.
Right? And my brother, who was the Chacham, right? He said, yeah, typecasting. Right? Okay, yeah, and he's 18 months older than I. Sounds like we're still so far apart. It's okay. He became the Rasha for a little while too. It's okay. You can ask a question, please.
Because also too, like, I think is sad about thinking about the 4 children, because I really hated that concept of like that son, just because I'm like, you're gonna throw like. They've heard this discussion, and I've had some interesting comments too from like other people that ended up being like, oh, I saw my son in this child, and
Right.
so in this one too, specifically also at the Passover Seder too, and I'm like, which is also just another interesting commentary on
Absolutely.
it too.
The Rabbinical Assembly Haggadah, have you seen the more, it's not so new, but it has a blue and white kind of cover. And it has something, an interesting picture in it of the 4 children. What it is 4 figures, but they have 4 different colors, right? And so each of them is a mix of the 4 different colors, which says what? There aren't 4 archetypes. Within us, there are archetypes, right? By the way, the number 4 becomes really important. We'll talk about it in another session, but the number 4 is a lot about completion, right? It's a lot about completion. That's why it's utilized. 4 questions, right? 4 sons, right? 4 cups of wine, which by the way is not accurate. How many cups of wine are there? 5 cups of wine, right? I mean, I don't know what you drink at your Seder. There are people who drink many more than that, but the obligatory cups of wine are only, right, 4, but there's a bracha for the 5th cup of wine as well. Okay. So-
Bible has a question.
Yeah, sorry, Tybal, go ahead.
The first thing is I want, if you look at my virtual background, I have that thing from the RA Haggadah queued up because I'm leading on Zoom again this year.
Okay, I can't see it, but
It's
let's
the-
see if we can, okay,
Out here.
let's see if we can find you. Okay, oh, there it is. The one with the colored kids up top in the middle? Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Because
You're
that's
invited,
already part of,
you're invited
part
next
of-
week.
yeah.
You're invited next week, yeah.
And I'll try to come. I'm in Maryland. I just thought I'd tell you that. But what I was about to say, and I'll just be short, I try to, when I lead, I try to focus on something new every year. And what I'm focusing on this year is what I just learned from a teacher about Tom, the simple son, and how using a biblical concordance, it's a praise for being whole and perfect, all sorts of places in the Bible. And even
Yeah.
all the way to, that's why Rabbeinu Tom was called Rabbeinu Tom, because that's Tom.
Right.
And I think it's a whole different look at how we
Beautiful, thank you. So-
look at simple.
Yeah, simplicity is often elegance too. Simplicity is often honesty, integrity, right? Unobfuscated. By the way, it's Tam, just to make sure somebody said Tom, if you're writing it out, it's Tam. T-A-M, like Tam or Tom, but his name wasn't Tom, that's what I want to make sure. It's not T-O-M like Thomas, right? But Rabbeinu Tam, or being the Tam is really wonderful. By the way, if you could be something really in life, would it be so bad to be simply content? I mean, if you go, just be simply content.
Isn't that also the father, right?
Yeah.
The person who's content with what they have.
You're happy, you don't have to go chasing. By the way, that doesn't mean you don't dig deep. But it's also, there's something about just enjoying the moment in which you find yourself. Look, one of the things we don't do so good in our tradition, and they do it better in Eastern traditions, is breathe into experiences. right? First time I went to breathe into experiences. So you're doing yoga, right? And I'm not flexible, okay? I mean, I'm flexible in some ways, but I'm not flexible in my body. And the teacher was so kind with me, right? And she said, not today. Today's not the day for this pose for you, or you'll do it this way. Here's a modification today. And then as I started to get better, she would say, breathe into it. Breathe into it. And as you breathe, you could continue to make progress over the course of time. If you breathe into the reality and rest into it, it can work in a wide variety of ways, I think. Okay, let's go on a little bit more and talk about persistence, right? So Moses was persistent, that's for sure, right? He repeatedly risked his life to speak to Pharaoh about freeing the Israelites from slavery. Moses continues to be persistent, even though he knows his followers are stubborn, stiff-necked people. By the way, does Moses ever run out of patience?
Yeah,
Pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Okay, pretty regularly.
hitting
okay?
the rock.
One time in particular.
One figure, yeah, right. Still, he hopes that they will return to the Holy One. But I want to say something really important, okay? Moses doesn't make it to the promised land. Why?
He lost his temper against God.
Okay, so one thing is to say that he was what? He was a hothead. Moses was a hothead.
Didn't he get angry with God?
Yeah, he got
That's why
angry. Right, he gets angry with God. There's all kinds of midrashim that he also got angry at lots of other people along the way. Like, how about the slave, right? The Egyptian taskmaster he
Right.
kills and he buries. I mean, that's a little anger management issue. Okay, so persistence, also has a certain kind of element of patience, of understanding, of long suffering. There's this element here of understanding. And what do we call God? Right? God is long suffering. God is long suffering. Eres apayim, long face, long nose, long, right? He has just this whole countenance and there's something about that that's really important. Because the truth of the matter is, how quickly do we often lose our temper? And being a person who has a little bit of, a little bit of patience to get to the end. And again, I'm talking to you at 55, 56 years old. I wasn't like this when I was 5 or 15 or 25 or even 35 for that matter. You know the categories of people. There are people who use their mind to help you, and there are people who use their mind to beat the stuffing out of you. Have you ever had teachers like that? I had teachers like that. I had them all through my education. Right? We were always rewarded. I always thought it was such a nice, compliment. When I was a kid, they called me Speedy. Why? Because I learned things fast and I read fast in Hebrew. And then I encountered people who were way deeper than me. Right? And I realized that for all the speed, depth was far more important. And sometimes you can't go to depth unless you slow down and just take a breath and take it all in, rest into it. Things will come to you only in the midst of, how many of us wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, shoot, I had that, let me write this down because they're going to forget it by the morning, right? I actually started to keep next to my bed a journal for a dream or for a thought or for a resolution. You ever go to bed and have with angst-filled moments and you figured it out at night and you go, oh, shoot, I forgot what the solution was. But at 3 in the morning, I knew what it was. Like we don't honor that part of ourselves. And so the persistence and the patience of all of this. By the way, here's the problem. What's Pesach really all about? What's matzah?
Being hurried.
It's hurried. It's hurried. What's right? It's lechem, right? It's bread. That's what? Bechipazon. Chipazon means what? They ate it quickly. Now here's the issue. The truth is that it's the bread of slavery because what was it? What was it? Come on, think. It was a bread that was cooked fast. Who cooks their food fast and eats it fast?
You slice.
Slaves. Why? They don't know where their next meal is coming from. You remember the stories of the Shoah, of the Holocaust? Who survived? People who ate the necessity and set aside the food for a later meal. They took only the caloric intake that they needed and didn't eat it all, bevat achad, in one big bite, and tried to hold on to it. I know it's not a great comparison, but on some level, we're always fast. And by the way, we eat matzah on Pesach to remind us that who eats food fast? Slaves. They give you a chunk of whatever it is, dough. What do you do with it? You don't let it rise. You take it, you throw it on the fire. Less than 18 minutes, it can rise, and you eat it. And that's why it tastes like, But I mean, it's not leavened bread. Leavened bread is the bread of, not of affliction, of comfort. That's part of the problem with Pesach today, because only really rich people can actually celebrate Pesach. Because the cost of the darn food, they send me 6 boxes of chocolate. I'm gonna have to mortgage my home. It's like crazy, the cost of food for Pesach. And by the way, it's just gonna get worse over the course of time. You know why? Because there's all this crazy super kosher, above the super kosher, above the super kosher, which costs even more money. And at a certain point, it becomes so crazy, but it is this outdoing. Pesach is a time that says we don't want to live the chipazon. We don't want to live hurried all the time. We want to live into the peaceful, the patient, and it's part of what's happening here. And I'll just say it as well. Sometimes the vicissitudes of life require a certain kind of patience. Okay, just by show of hands, how many people are patient with themselves? I don't see one. Maybe somebody over there. We're not so patient with ourselves, right? And generally speaking, people who are not patient with themselves are not patient with other people either. In fact, more so sometimes. I wish I was more patient, with other people. We've tried the best that we can, but it's an art form. P.S. If you think about the foods of Pesach and the imbibing is what? You take it in. What's the hope? Remember our folks, the first peoples of this country? If they killed an elk, what did they eat first? Or most importantly, what was prized to them? The heart. Why? You were taking the power of the animal, right? Isn't that interesting? So you're taking in the power. What's the power of the matzah? Okay, here's one that's going to blow your mind. You know any other people who eat a little wafer for it to be imbibing something? You ever?
Catholic.
We'll get to it, but ask yourself the question, right? When do we eat that last matzah? At the Seder. Tzafun. What does tzafun mean?
Sir,
It doesn't mean that.
end of the meal.
No. Whoa, you're gonna get your mind blown. I'll tell you now, we'll go over this. Tzafun means the hidden one. Tzafun. Who was hidden? Who was hidden in the Pesach story? Same with Moses, right? Right, and it actually says there, Batit speno. It's what's called a hapax legomena. It's a word that appears only once, actually, in this case, twice within the entire Torah. That means what? Look at it really carefully. Batit speno. She hid him. Tafun. Speno. You hear it? He was the hidden one. And guess what? He becomes the what? The Redeemer. And who's still hidden for the Jewish people and for many other people? He's already coming, he's coming back. It's the messianic reality.
Mashiach energy.
Mashiach energy. You are imbibing Mosaic Mashiach energy so that you leave the Seder doing what? Being part of the solution of the ultimate deliverance of humanity. That's the last thing you eat, and you're not allowed to eat after, right? En maftirin achar haPesach afikomen. You eat afikomen less. It lasts. It's not the macaroons. It's not all the other things that we put out, which is nice, which we do because we got another hour or at least a half an hour to end the Seder. And if people haven't eaten for 30 minutes, I might be hungry already. But it's not. If you really think about the energy, if the last thing you eat is the matzah that represents the power within you to be a force for salvation, not only of yourself, but of the world. If you are the Messiah or part of the messianic solution, wow, imbibe that, right? Imbibe that, own that. That's a very powerful idea. Okay, was that new for anybody or is I just came up with it myself just now, so.
She said you're not supposed to, you shouldn't eat it, you should keep that piece, you put it inside a teapot up on the stove, and you kept it the whole year, and then you're like, this is important.
I did that too.
Really?
That's it.
Yeah.
Then we cleaned out her place. She had them wrapped in her drawer, written with years.
Wow, that's an amazing thing. I just want you to know that if you've ever been in Tzfat, anybody been in Tzfat synagogues? If you ever saw in Tzfat, in the Tzfat synagogues, there's a bag, and in the bag, right, there's matzah. What's that all about? That bag with the matzah is what's called the matzah that makes us a community. In order to have an eruv, right, an enclosement that allows for people to carry in the public domain on Shabbat, you have to you have to make it a private domain. How's the private domain? By having something that we all own collectively. Okay, it's a very interesting concept. And so they had a bag where they hang the bread or the matzah, and they would change it from matzah to matzah from year to year. In the synagogues that I served, every year we would take a box of matzah and this is the year 57, whatever, you put it on there, and we would change it right before. It would be the eruv, the thing that brought it, the unifying force for the entire community, which allowed us all to feel part of a community in some kind of way. Most people don't know that, but it's a beautiful concept, right? On some level that you're holding on to it. This was a piece of matzah that was clearly important to our ancestors, really important to our ancestors. Yeah, you want to say something? I'm sorry.
So your families just changed it each year, but in Shane's family kept
My Bobby
it
collected
forever.
them.
They collected them, right.
Oh, yeah.
My Bobby collected pieces of soap that she stole from Good Hotel. And toilet paper and, right, the truth of the matter is,
Yeah.
I mean, it was sad, but it was reality. Okay.
Where else in the Torah is this word? You said twice.
Batitz Beno, it's only there. It's right there. If you take a look in that section about Moses being hidden. That's something. Somebody bring me a Chumash, I'll show you exactly where it is. We got them right over there. When you hear about Moshe. So- Yeah, no, it's right. When she puts him in the basket, right, she can no longer. Great, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Superman
Describing.
from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, I would say, just because I see it a little differently, superfood.
Yeah.
This is, you know what matzah is? It's wonder bread, not wonder bread, like wonder bread with the air. It's bread that makes you wonder. And in the Haggadah, we talk about it, matzah she'onim alav, which means what? Matzah that we provide answers over. We provide insights over, right? It is the matzah that facilitates and catalyzes for us. Again, it's an imbibing that opens our eyes. And again, I don't want to get into people's psychedelics and that kind of experimentation, but for those people who dabble in those things, I don't dabble in those things, but people who do talk about the psychedelic experience that's generated via the use of mind-altering, stimulating drugs. Let me just find this quickly so that you'll know where the space is, because I don't want to have been ready for it. We're in the book of Exodus, right? It's right at the beginning, right? And when we're dealing with the birth of, right?
You said, so when he was an infant in the, ark, okay.
In the basket, right? And Vatitz Beno, and she hit him. Let's find it, right? Okay, take a look. If you, I'll read it. A certain man of the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived, right? And she saw that he was good. Here's the word in Hebrew. Vatitz Benehu. Pitz Benehu, right? It's the same word, right? Shlosha Yerachim, for 3 months, right? V'lo yachla od hitz beno, and she could not hide him any longer, safun him any longer, right? Vatikach lo tevat gomer. She took this basket and covered it, and he put it on the Nile River, and she stood from afar. That's the two places where it appears.
It's chapter,
It's chapter 2
Mhm.
and Pasuk. It starts in beginning, right? Chapter 2:1. No, 2:2 and 2:3. 2:2 and 2:3. 2:3. Okay, chapter. Bring that to your Seder. Hey, how do you know that Moses was in a basket? And where do you know? Where is it? And what does it mean? And by the way, you don't have this word anywhere else in the 5 books of Moses. That tells you something, right? And if you believe in the divine authorship of the text, great, okay? Then you think God did this for a reason. If you believe in the human authorship of the text, you also believe these guys knew what they were doing. They did it for a reason. And remember something, we are readers. We are not memorizers, right? But they didn't read, they listened. That's why it's called, right? This was the greatest, Megillah reading. Did anybody actually hear more than 4 words of the entire Megillah? I was here and it was a wonderful experience. You guys do a great job and excellent readers. But the truth is, it's what? It's, you hear the Megillah, right? Al Mikra Megillah, you're supposed to hear it. That's the mitzvah. And unfortunately, it's hard. People aren't used to sitting for that long. And by the way, you're supposed to say Haman, boo, 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 boo. But people spend more time boo, 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 booing than they hear the rest of the whole story. And again, I understand that I have Rahmanis on people. I understand that people only have a certain amount of sitzfleisch. They can only sit for so long. But at a certain point, you miss the syllable, right? The emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, you saw that there? I didn't make it up. You saw that it's actually in the text. I didn't make up mine. Okay, I want to finish the last piece for today. Oh, I'm over time already. That went too fast. It's already 8:45. Do you have a few more minutes or should I end?
No.
We can go? We can go? If you have to leave, please leave. I don't want you to be late or, I don't know, there must be a good show on tonight. Okay. Passover is a lesson in perseverance, okay? This is a really powerful piece. Somebody want to read a little bit? You want to read out loud? It's English, like your first language. Go ahead.
Passover is a lesson in perseverance. This was published in JTA in 2018.
Yeah.
Throughout the process, Moses has a choice. He can surrender and endure the consequences of failing to liberate generations of Jews from slavery, or he can persevere, investing his faith in a better future for all of Israel. Moses chooses to persevere. When he reaches the Sea of Reeds, with countless hopeful freedom seekers and Pharaoh's ruthless armies behind him, Moses relies on his perseverance and faith in God and leads the Israelites through the parted sea on their way to the promised land of Israel. The Israelites' journey is not easy. It requires struggle, sacrifice, and perseverance to reach the Holy Land.
What about strife, by the way? Should have added that word in there too. Internal fighting, right? It's as bad as anything else, yeah?
Revisiting that journey in the special order and detail it occurred reminds us that the pathway toward freedom and truth can often be challenging. There will be setbacks, but they must never keep us from fighting the moral fight and standing up for what is right and true.
So I want to just add just a couple of more P's and then we'll finish, but I think it's very good. Playfulness. I wanted to leave it a little bit later in the conversation, but this kind of got left out, okay? Playfulness. Sometimes being silly is a way to show up, practice, right, of being vulnerable and protecting ourselves, reminding ourselves not to become too self-important. We can release our caution and our fear that we might get it wrong. This is a rabbi who's a kind of a spiritually oriented person, but sometimes having fun, being silly is really important too, right? Like, and frogs were jumping everywhere, right? All that kind of stuff that does fun. Fun is okay. Judaism doesn't always have to be, like slavery. It shouldn't be. There should be something liberating about it. By the way, there's a big difference between service and servitude, right? There's something really different about it. You can be in service of something that's a high calling, including fun. You can be in service of having fun. Sometimes we get a little crazy, especially with kids, and say to the kids, you should take this more seriously, this serious moment in time. I would like to say to people, this is fun. Most people have a really hard time. I'll tell you how this works, you haven't had me ever lead you in a service, okay? I always just say in my shul, it's called peppy, not schleppy. Okay? Most shuls are schleppy. Not this shul, this shul. Most shuls are schleppy, right? And there isn't a lot of pep in the step. And there isn't a lot of the ability of people to be set free by the experience. Just to step a little bit outside your normal comfort zone, right? So sometimes if you let people close their eyes so they're not looking at each other, and just be, and allow yourself to be free in that experience. I watched it a little bit because, oh, by the way, Mazel Tov, I know there's a new baby in the congregation. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I called over to wish them Mazel. But we went to the minyan, what's it called? The alternative minyan, which she was doing, a spiritual minyan. Which I thought was really lovely. And I watched people, and people got into it, but also people got uncomfortable. And, so, and it's okay. I don't want people to, look, You know really what religion's supposed to do? It's supposed to quiet the disturb the quiet, right? But on some level, I understand it's not for everybody, but there's something about allowing ourselves to play a little bit. The playfulness is really important. And here I'll give you my proof text, okay? One of my favorite sections of the Talmud. In the meantime, two brothers came to the marketplace. It's a continuation of a series of stories, Rabbi Baroka, okay? And Elijah the prophet, by the way, who's very present in the lives of our ancestors. I don't know how Elijah feels to you, but Elijah's around a lot. Tell me when you hear Elijah and see Elijah.
Yes.
At a bris. Right, good. That was good. That wasn't the first one that most people get. You have
Seder.
You have boys? You have boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. At the Seder,
Havdalah.
Havdalah, what else?
For the Jews of Bnei Israel in India, Elijah is their central,
Central.
everything. They have an entire Seder just
Yeah,
for
just around.
Elijah that so
Um,
that's who they think saved.
Eliyahu Hanavi also is what? The harbinger of the arrival of the Mashiach. Hinei ani anochi sholech lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi lifnei bo yom Adonai. Elijah comes before the day of the Lord. Right? He's the harbinger. He's the one who's the midvaser, it's called. He's the one who's calling out that the Mashiach is coming. He's announcing it. So Rabbi Baroka went over to the men and said, what is your occupation? Right? And they said to him, we are jesters and we cheer up the depressed. Alternatively, when we see two people who have a quarrel between them, we work hard to make peace through jokes. There's something about being a jokester and giving people a chance to laugh a little at themselves, at others, at the realities of life. I know it's hard in certain moments, but there's something about it that this wonderful Elijah the prophet, right, was trying to suggest. And by the way, it's an occupation to be a jester. You see that? Ma melachtecha, right? Melacha is really work. It's in this case, holy work. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just me. We can shut it down for a moment, then I'll finish. But for me, I have different groups of friends. You have a friend you can go to when you're really sad. Sometimes you're lucky because you have a life partner who could be that many different things to you. But some of us have friends we go to be with when we just need to let loose. And some of us have friends we go to when we really need to be serious. And some of us have friends we go to when we want to be deep and spiritual, right? They're not all the same groups of individuals, and that's okay. There are people who are available to you. Just like there are different kind of teachers for you. There are teachers who teach you about the spiritual life, there are people who teach you about the intellectual life, people teach you about your business life, there are people, and in our lifetimes, we're very, very, very lucky if we come across some of those individuals and have those kind of panoply of people that we can turn to as a panel of people that we can have in our lives. What I think this really says to us is this whole panoply of the experiences, again, a P word, right, associated with Pesach. Pesach has the ability to, again, P word, penetrate, right? Penetrate deeply. It can move you from one place to another. In fact, it can help you pass over from one location to the other. And I better stop with the puns because it's the lowest form of humor. But I think you could play with this as part of the experience at Pesach and try to generate a list. And with that, we will end tonight by asking you to come up with a P word that we didn't use that you would like to throw on the table now that I'll have at my Seder this year. Help me.
Early on, the word perspicacious came to me, but.
You have to define it for those of us whose second language is English. What does it mean?
Yeah, I was trying to remember, like, I didn't think it fit in because it's probably more like. We should Google it.
Okay, but any other words that for P that would work for
I
you?
was gonna say pillow, but there's no.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because we lean on a pillow, right? We're leaning, that's a great one, okay? By the way, the word in Yiddish, proverb, anybody know what it means, proverb? Somebody proverbs the Seder. What does the Seder need? It needs a leader. A leaderless Seder is like a rudderless ship. It'll run away from you and you won't get it back under control. So you need to have somebody who's proverbs the Seder. It's really, really, and it's hard because it's not simple. Because again, everybody likes the Seder the way they like the Seder, right? And that, especially the people who plan on leaving at 9 o'clock, no matter where you are in the Seder, right? They're leaving. So they want to get what they want to get out of it. But we have to find ways in which to do it. Any other P words? People on the projection screen. Any P words over there? What's that?
Play.
What? Plate. Oh, yeah, the Seder plate. Very good. That's a good one. You got it. Fantastic. Anybody else? A P?
Play, Play.
Plate.
Play.
Yes,
To
good
play.
one, right? Yeah, effect. Good. What else?
Purpose.
Purpose, yeah. Say more about that. That's a one, good one.
I thought I was done with that.
But there's also ways with purpose, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like an agenda, what's the purpose of this experience? Right? Ma nishtana halayla hazeh. We asked a question, but what is different this time? I don't know for those of you like me, my kids are now, my eldest is 25, 23, 21, and 19. There's a moment in time when you sit there and you just shut nachas, you just enjoy the experience of watching them having grown into people, really, just being people, like mensches. And they are there doing their thing. And it may be different than the way I want to do it or we had done it growing up. We actually did something really interesting. We handed the Seder over to the next generation. What would they do with the Seder? Some people were sad because the young people didn't want to do the same Seder, right? One of the saddest things that happens, and letzarenu, much to my dismay, sometimes our brightest and our best, our day school kids, the kids who get these really heavy Jewish educations early on, they think that the only way in which to do the Judaism is out of the red and yellow, Haggadah, right? And they forget that the Seder is supposed to be this ongoing thing, right? It's supposed to accrete new material to it. You're supposed to add to it, and they get kind of stuck in it. So there's something about it being particularly poignant, you get that, when you're able to, insert something that is, important to them. Anybody else, just any other things? Participation is really important. You got to encourage it, yeah.
I think parenting.
Yeah, say more. That's great. Okay, say more. What do you mean? What are you doing? What does it mean by parenting to you?
I mean, it's like how I'm raising my kids and this is an experience for us and my
Yeah.
mom's looking over me and it just keeps going. 'Cause we're all at the same table.
Yeah.
So.
And you're teaching, the greatest thing in this. I'm so happy my parents are going to come for Pesach because my dad's 85, my mom's 80. Like how many more years? We hope lots and lots and lots more. But the opportunity to be at the table with your Zeta, your what okay, everybody get ready to take out the Kleenex, right? Who do you miss the most on Pesach? Who do you miss?
I do.
Your
Grandpa.
dad, your Baba, your sibling, your whatever, it's right, dear friends, whatever. Like you think about those people and you want to bring them with you and you hope that they're sitting at the Seder, right? They are the Elijah of the prophets. They're that empty chair that needs to get filled by somebody and their presence again, presence of the power of the presence of the past is a great way to talk. I'd like to write a Haggadah called The Power of the Presence, right? I mean, it's really a good one. Any other P's that we missed? All the people we can't
Promise.
see? Promise,
Promise.
yeah. What do you mean by that? The promise of liberation, the promise of the homeland, the promise of the future? What do you mean?
Well, the promises that God has made to us.
Right, the promises that are still with us. And by the way, the promises that have yet to be fulfilled.
That's right.
I kept thinking pestilence.
We got some of
We
that in
had
this
that
story too.
already.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be on our house.
No,
But by the way, just the whole notion of Pesach, right? Pesach, pass over, literally. Like we're hoping that certain things pass over us. I don't know, COVID, do you remember what that was like? I was just like hoping that it wouldn't hit our house. Right?
Yeah.
We were just sitting there hoping that it was like passing over us. Right? There's something about that, that we really hope that it will pass over. And some of the afflictions that we're experiencing today should pass us by. Right? I don't know, you remember the Ten Commandments movie?
Mhm.
When they first made it into color?
Yeah.
And that eerie smoke was kind of through the streets of.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? It's like, felt like Vincent Price had written that part, like going through there, right? And you really I was just hoping like, take a left, don't go right, take a left. And we all had those experiences in our life where we could pass us by, yeah.
I think Richard had his hand.
Richard,
No, I was gonna say promise, but I also was meaning promise for a better tomorrow. Because we're supposed to be an optimist, we're supposed to believe in that better tomorrow, even though it's, in my opinion, pretty pessimistic today.
Another P word, but I think you're right. We are supposed to believe in optimism. We are the people of eternal optimism. There's a reason it's called Patikra, right? There is the hope, and the hope is real in that sense. We make the hope real, but it doesn't mean we don't live through the experiences that we have and experience them in earnest. We don't want to be, sorry to use another word, Pollyanna. Pesach doesn't allow for you to be Pollyanna. It doesn't. It means you have to live in the experience, okay? By the way, this is a great exercise, the P's and Q's. We didn't do the Q's so much. We'll get to the Q's the next time, right? The questions that we're asking ourselves as we move it through. Just as a forspice, as a taste of what's to come, right? The next session we'll do a little bit more around the issues of the Q's, the great questions that we have in the Seder. The questions that go answered and the questions that go unanswered. And the questions that go unanswered intentionally, because we're always leaving space for what the answer might ultimately be. I'll just finish with this last quote. If you don't remember anything else of what I said, right? The whole experience of salvation or the Messianic era is the asymptotal striving of the Jewish people. I think I've said it in this group before, but it's the asymptotal striving of the Jewish people. Asymptotes are two lines that get ever closer to one another and never meet, right? So you don't give up. You just know that you're asymptotally getting to that place, right? So we're lucky that we have this whole story of salvation. But remember, Dayenu, right? But what does Dayenu mean? There's 15 verses there of Dayenu. What does it not say? And then God brought Mashiach, and everybody lived forever, and we're all happy and rich and skinny. Like, it doesn't say that stuff, right? It doesn't say that. Right? It says Dayenu. You're supposed to be happy with what it is that you got. But the truth of the matter, would you really been happy? Had God brought us across the sea, then left us in the middle of the desert, and then you say, Dayenu. Like, really? Is that really what you believe? You don't believe that kind of stuff, right? And that's part of what we have to have here. It's an asymptotal striving. Yeah, we're so glad we got to stage next. Like, there's still more to go. And that's, I think, the eternal struggle. And P.S., maybe that's a great lesson of Moses not making the land of Israel. Because we're all Moses in miniature. We're all still along the way. We're all stuttering. We're all making mistakes. We're all hitting rocks. We're all getting pissed off when we shouldn't get pissed off, right? We're all having children who don't necessarily always do. My wife has perfect children. Right? We're still hoping for things to work out. By the way, do you notice one of the worst relationships in the whole book of Exodus is between Moses and his own children?
Yeah.
He's never home.
Yeah, that's the story of my life. That was the first part of my career, never home. But I will tell you that when Moses dies, unlike, you know how long they mourned Aaron? You ever see this in the Torah?
How long they mourned Aaron?
They mourned Aaron for 30 days. They didn't mourn for Moses that long. They didn't. Well, it says something really interesting, right? Like the guy that makes the rules, right? The guy who's in charge isn't always loved. The guy who's the sidekick is always loved. Who makes golden calves? He's loved because he acquiesced to the base elements that. Sorry, I'm keeping you. We're almost done, but that base element is something that we resonate with because we all know that's okay. I'm going to be the late Rabbi Rose if I don't end the session. So. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah.
We'll do it again, same time, same that channel, right?
That channel.
7:30 and next time, and Sheeny will have the material. Can I just tell you what it is? Just to look for a sec.
Yep, and actually for everyone online next week, I'm gonna get these online, so there are source sheets ahead of time. Not only will we share them, but you'll be able to look at them as.
This will be the cues. It'll be about the questions of Pesach. Okay, the 4 questions and how they really appear in rabbinic sources, and then we'll talk about what that really means, sort of as essentially for all of us. Okay, so if you're here, great. If you're not here, we'll miss you. If you like the material and you're not here next time, we'll get it to speak.